The US is looking to choke off Iran's oil income, leading to speculation that it will go after Tehran's largest oil terminal. That's on a small island in the Persian Gulf. Kharg Island sits roughly 30 kilometers off the Iranian coast and is less than half the size of Manhattan. Kharg is basically a huge oil storage facility. Almost all of Iran's exported crude oil passes through here. But to take the island without damaging its infrastructure, experts agree that ground troops would be necessary. Carole is a CEO of Crystol Energy in London, and she told me more about why Kharg Island is so important for Iran and global oil markets.
It's definitely of a great importance to Iran because it is the place where Iran offload its oil production from different fields and export it to the rest of the world. So we have almost 90% of what Iran exports to global markets come from that island. So take away that island or wipe it out the map, and you almost destroy the Iranian economy. So that is really how important that island is for Iran.
Is it just important for Iran, or does it have a wider importance for the global economy?
I mean, it really depends on how much importance you would put on Iranian oil exports. So given the fact that majority of those exports go through that island, and therefore they are important for a global economy, mind you, Iran's capacity to export is much more than we have seen in recent years because of the sanctions. So at the moment, the importance of that island is directly related to the importance of Iranian oil exports. All of those almost exclusively have been going to China. Now, of course, every little barrel helps in global oil markets, especially when you have tight supplies and demand is growing rapidly. So this is where I would derive the importance of the island to global oil markets. But it's not to say that it is really essential for global oil markets. It's more essential for the Iranian economy.
Now, it's been said that it is tempting to target that island for the US and Israel, but it's also risky. Why is that?
I can see the temptation because if you really want to weaken the financial power of the Iranian regime, that would be the perfect target, right? You wipe out 90% of their exports, and therefore you cripple the Iranian regime financially, or at least they cannot sponsor anymore their activities, military activity. So that's where the temptation is, and that temptation is still there on the table, by the way. It has not been removed, but it's also risky. Risky for several reasons. One of them is immediate risk, because if you do that, then you don't know what kind of trigger you're going to unleash when it comes to retaliation. So Iran, even though it has been targeting, sending some drones to attack some energy infrastructure in the region, it might widen its attacks on its neighbors. And as a result, you can see oil prices increasing further. And also the longer term effect, even if the US and Israel succeed in changing the regime in Iran, you have a new regime in place, but they also need the money, the revenues to build what has been a crippled economy after years and decades of sanctions and wars. So you are depriving whatever regime comes afterwards from an important source of revenue. So it carries both risks in the short term and in the longer term.
Now, if we're looking at Iran's oil customers, namely China, also India, how do you think they would be affected and how would they react?
I would say it's primarily China, because almost all of the Iranian oil recently had been going to China. Of course, it's not going at market prices. So one would argue that it does not matter where your oil is coming from, because you would end up paying the global market prices. But when you are buying sanctioned oil which is not supposed to be traded in global markets, or at least not at market prices, then you have a leverage, because not many other buyers want to buy that oil. and therefore you can force discounted prices on the seller. So this is, I would say, where the main benefit for China has been from buying not just sanctioned Iranian oil, but sanctioned Russian oil, sanctioned Venezuelan oil. The appeal of those oil is not because there is not enough oil out there, but because they are being sold in large volumes, relatively speaking, and at discounted prices. So when China loses such access, it is forced to buy from elsewhere at higher prices.
Carole Nakhle there, global energy economist and CEO of Crystol Energy, talking to us from London. Thank you very much for your insights.